time now is 6:31 on May 7th, 2024. We're going to call to order the Wayne Township Board of Trustees meeting for this evening. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Colvin,
I'm here.
Trustee Jacobs,
Here.
Trustee Patrick.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, sir.
Pledge allegiance. Please rise. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I miss Daryl's old baritone over there.
All right.
Lower a little bit.
He didn't know the big speaker.
It was a better harmony.
So next we have the approval of minutes of the previous meeting on April 16th. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I will second.
Okay, voice vote, all in favor of approving the minutes from
April 16th.
April 16th?
Yes, sir.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any nays and like sign? Motion carried.
Next, do we have any additions, removal, or disclosures from the posted agenda?
I do have addition of resolution 2024-55.
Okay. Thank you, Gus. Next, we are going to go into executive session.
Hold on here a second.
Yes, I
I've
can wait a
got the
second.
print off to you, but you can just read from that the reason for the executive session.
Okay. It's to consider the investigation of complaints against a public employee or official and dismissal, discipline, or demotion of a public employee or official pursuant to RC 121.22G, Section 1. May I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I will second that.
Okay, check in. I probably should do a roll call vote, so, Ms. Colvin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
We will be going to executive session at 6:33 p.m. Oh, we were gonna have the fire chief, we're gonna have Gus as well. Anybody else? And Katie's invited to the issue. Thank you. All right, the time now is 6:47. We adjourned the executive session at 6:45. We're going back to regular session now, and we're gonna pick up where we left off at. So now we're next to the citizens' comments. So, does anybody have any comments? Hearing none, we will move on to department head reports. Mr. Camry, road department, sir.
Good evening,
Good
board. Did you move?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna move through this, and then what we'll do is we'll go back to Kyle's,
Okay.
and then we will go into 7:30, we will go into the public hearing.
Okay. I told you I'd keep you straight.
Yes, you did.
I was just making sure. Good evening, board. Just a couple updates. We did get started on the first round of mowing, been making, even with rain in the forecast the last 2 days, we made very good progress. We should get done with the, if it holds off and we don't get deluge tonight, hopefully maybe tomorrow we'll finish with the south end and be ready to move north. Still nothing for a pre-con meeting for a chip seal program. Still got a little bit of crack sealing we want to try to get done this year ahead of the chip seal, but we're working at that. Other than that, the number one item there, I did get an email from the EPA, Ohio EPA. They made a first round award, but apparently they didn't get rid of all the money, or they found some additional money. So later on this year, they're going to make another round of awards. So
Okay.
we're still in the hunt. So fingers crossed. And that's all I have. Unless you have anything you need to pass along to me.
I was gonna ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Culvert, application recommendations. How does a person go about doing that? The way we help them out to install a culvert for their driveway.
Okay, so they talk with Warren County.
Okay,
Okay, there's a Jason Fisher at Warren County Engineer's Office, he's the culvert guy. So he'll write them a permit, he'll verify all the information. If it's brand new, you know, he's gotta verify site distance, address, all that jazz. And then he'll write them a permit, and then they have the option, if, you know, if they don't have, our policy is that we will install the culvert to ensure that it's installed properly and on the right grade.
okay.
We've had that policy, that actually the county did have that policy, but they abandoned it, I can't say that word, on the advice of the prosecutor's office. They somehow or another felt that there was too much liability.
I understand. No, that's good, that's,
Yeah, that's the process. Yeah, the county writes the permits. And, you know, if they're replacing, you know, a damaged or an existing culvert, it's kind of a coin flip, depending on where it's at. I mean, they don't necessarily have to get a permit, but if it is, depending on where the area is, I like to have the hydrology calculations rerun to ensure that the size of the pipe is proper.
oh, good.
To make sure, you know, at the very least, it's the same size pipe that was in there, but if, depending on where it's at in the geographic location of the township, you know, the watersheds could have changed, or there might be something different that the pipe needs to be increased in size. So I like to have those calculations, which they turn around quickly for me,
Well, that's great.
so.
Good, well, thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
that. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. King?
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Next, we'll go to the fire chief's report. Chief Beckett.
Hi, good evening, thank you for having me. As you received, those are our run counts for April: 59 EMS runs, 6 fire runs, service calls were 11 for a total of 76. However, we did do a training. The state fire marshal came in and talked to us a little bit about how we're coding our runs. So we did more than 6 fire runs in April. We had that training closer to the end of April. So now we're working on how we're coding our runs properly. So good data in gives us good data out. So you'll see those kind of adjust a little better in the upcoming meetings. We are hopefully hiring 5 people this evening, 3 for part-time, 2 for volunteer. We had 2 resignations. Eric and Toby and Jake Hanselman resigned, and we've got some other letters to get sent out. One big thing that does impact us, we were notified 2 weeks ago that Miami Valley South would no longer be a level 3 trauma center. So that means our trauma center will now be Miami Valley or Kettering, which increases the distance significantly. So we're gonna do some training on that, and what ultimately that will mean for us is we may be using the helicopter if they're entrapped or we've got a longer transport time. So we started identifying some pre-designated landing zones for the helicopter to land in, and early activation of that. The battalion upfitting, we chose Valor Outfitters. Their price was really decent, and a big factor was that they've got about a 3 to 4 month timeline to get it done, whereas we would have to wait 5 or 6 months to even start the process, whereas once Valor, they've started ordering the stuff, they'll bring it down and we'll get it done much quicker. And then I am supposed to be in Bowling Green next week. That's still kind of up in the air with my mom, so I don't know if I'll be doing that or not. I'll let you know. That's all I have. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I do. Have you thought about any more metrics to give us on reports, maybe like staffing rate or any types of graphing and stuff, or anything like that?
Yeah, I thought I emailed, maybe I just emailed it to myself to see how it looked, but there is, we can do almost anything with ESO, so if you wanna send me a list of what you'd like to see, I can get it.
Yeah, because I know in the past we had problems with, sometimes we didn't have full staffing, or we had nobody in the station, and I don't know if we still have that situation going on, with new people coming on, or, you know, it'd be nice to see, especially as we're, you know, further into the year when we have to consider whether to do any more levies or,
Right.
or anything, try to get some of that collected.
Yeah, I can have something to you.
And then, I still would like to have the old fire station on our old business, not really to discuss tonight, but in the future, to keep it on there so we don't lose sight of what we, some kind of disposition of it. You guys agree with that, or?
Yes. That's fine, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Keep that there.
All right.
Any more
No.
questions?
Nope.
I have none. So we could actually move into, Assistant Fire Chief
Oh.
proclamation. I think we're about that time. We're gonna do oath of office now.
Are your people here?
Is everybody here?
My wife's running, she'll be here in 5 minutes.
Well, we can, wait, that's no problem.
She's coming from a track meet thing.
Yeah, we will wait for
Alright,
it. That's
appreciate
no
it.
problem. Let's just move into the zoning inspectors board. Ms. Lippi, how are you doing?
Good. You see a list of my permits this month. It was a little slower with permits. We do have the public hearing tonight for rezoning on 31190 State Route 73. I do want to state for the record that I left it out of your packet, but the zoning commission did recommend approval of that, as did the regional planning. And I also have here a reconciliation on the magazine costs. This did cost a little bit more this time per copy, just a little bit less advertising, so we're about 42 cents per copy for the magazine. And that's about what I've got here tonight for you.
Ms. Lyon? Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Good? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go into administration report. Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, trustee.
Good evening.
Board. Let's see. Bring up my report here. We did get the SLRF annual report taken care of and filed, so we're good until the end of March of next year. I'll skip to this. Our insurance service, we did get onboarded with our employees with their health insurance, so I do have packets, I believe, I mailed out to our board members that are on the policy. I thought he made a pretty good presentation. I've had some discussion with Kurt and his wife on what they have to do. So we will move forward with it. The administrator has trouble talking and speaking. But he eventually will get there. Okay, we got there. All right.
Business expo.
Okay, so, Business Expo, I want to thank all fire department members that helped set up, Stacy for helping set it up. It was a pretty good presentation for the community, and like I said, we did get to talk about the fire department, and had some people passed out flyers, so they went up to the fish fry. So kind of tag along into that. I'd like to thank the WTFD members for their participation or helping or working the event. It's been an annual event. I'm glad you continued that on. It's a great tradition. And I think our members in the community look forward to that. Marine Department program, I did not have resolutions tonight. I put those off till the next meeting due to the fact that we have so much on the agenda. Corwin Road closure, you see what I have here in my report. It's getting closed on where the 73 bridge work is being done on the 8th. Scott, we went to the ODOT meeting that I couldn't make this afternoon at 1 o'clock for an update on the status on the bridge project.
Right, so Corwin Road will be closed tomorrow morning for an extended period of time. The bike trail will remain open, they're gonna divert it around. They didn't really have a clear idea of how they were gonna do that, but the bike trail will remain open, but Corwin Road will be closed. Currently, they're about 46 days behind schedule. They ran into some problems when they were driving the piling and the sheeting. The borings did not show that the ground was as hard as it was. So what was supposed to take a week took a month and put them sorely behind schedule. We discussed a lot of different ideas to try to close that gap, to try to shorten, that. They've been working 5 days, they're looking at working 6 days, possibly maybe trying to work some nights, weather dependent, all that things. Long story short, they're hoping to have it open 11 October, which is the Friday before Sauerkraut Festival, which is cutting it close. The other problem that they're having is the transportation and the logistics of the bridge beams. Manufacturing is not a problem, but it takes a very specialized vehicle to move. And this bridge down here, the bridge beams are 198 feet long and weigh 180,000 pounds each. And they're waiting on the Ohio Department of Transportation to give them the calculations, because what happens is this vehicle pulls onto the lane that is current, then the crane can pick that off. Well, they have to know whether or not the bridge is gonna hold up.
Yeah.
If the bridge is gonna stand with that much weight on it for the length of time it takes to pluck those beams off and put them in. So we threw around a lot of different ideas for time savings to bring that 44 or 46 days shorter, because I emphasize greatly between the Renaissance Festival and the Sauerkraut Festival and the hill climb, that is not a good recipe to have 73 down and closed. So, and they all recognize that, and we're very appreciative of my candor, and are going to work towards that not happening. But it's still, it is what it is. It's going to take what it takes, and they're working just as quickly as they can. So
Did they concur that they would try to do the 10-day complete shutdown on the Little Miami Bridge for the overlay?
that is still up in the air. I asked about that, and they with the setbacks that they haven't got a good schedule of when that they were going to close that to do that bridge, the river bridge redeck. But I did convey to them that the latter part of July was probably going to be a good time for that, and they were appreciative of that. When we left, they were looking at a lot of the time matrix to see how everything was going to fit. So, a lot of good information exchanged. Wasn't too pleased for the delay information, but it is what it is. But they don't want it down, and they don't want to be here any longer than what they have to be. No, the contractor and ODOT. So now you know what I know.
So my conversations with them is that their goal is to go to, what was in my report, the bridge will, phase A will be closed for about 8 weeks, then they'll can reopen Corwin Road for about 3 weeks, and then they'll have to shut it down for another at least 8 weeks, if not till the end of the project. But they were trying to decide when they can do the 10-day shutdown for the overlay of the Little Miami Bridge. And they wanted to know if it was okay, or if we had a preference, whether or not it was to do it at the same time they had Corwin Road completely closed down. And the more I've talked to people and thought about it, I think if at all they can try to do it when they can open Corwin Road so that if we got traffic backed up clear through Poland, they've got another way of getting out, turning around.
Both ODOT and the contractor were very welcoming of that idea. So, you know, because, with just that, and, you know, it's like closing them down, putting everybody into a mousetrap.
Yeah.
So, and they were, you know, they were appreciative of that idea and thought. And then the way I took it is that they were gonna try to employ that.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Otarma, Gene Rizzo will be here Thursday. He's an appraiser with the HCA Assessment Management. That's the firm that's contracted to Otarma. And they'll be doing all of our physical buildings, anything over $50,000 on Thursday. They'll be going around and be taking on-site appraisals. So they'll be doing some measurements and looking and seeing what's leaking.
Is he gonna need inside the building? Because we'll probably be out on the road.
Yeah, but it's not till after, I think
It's 2 to
it's
3 p.m.,
yeah,
so
it's
you're
like-
not even there.
3 p.m. on that.
Okay, all right, very good.
So, I'll let you know. Library Park, you can read that in your packet, that's just the first thing that they sent out. I guess they've acquired that acre to the north of there, and they're just looking for input, any participation or whatever in that park. And also a big shout out for the Arbor Day heroes, Jeff Patton and Derek Brown, along with their supervisor, Caleb Commission at the last minute. They had scheduled to plant a small arbor, or small tree.
Supposed to be a small tree.
Yeah, a small tree that ended up being, I'm sure I have pictures of it, but about a 20-foot tree. And once they went down to pick it up, and it took Andy's trailer, I believe, so I guess it was huge. And on the way back, they were calling anybody, whoever, to dig a hole. So they took the hoe up there and dumped
And I
it.
think what started out being this big turned out to be this big. So we were able to buzz up there and dig a hole for them and get it in.
Okay, I guess I'll have it for
Any
you.
other questions for Gus? Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you, Gus. Next, we will do, are we good now?
We are good now.
Was the track meet a success?
It was rained out.
It was raining out tonight.
You got a copy? Yeah. I'm gonna read the original. Congratulations again. Good. So, upon oath of office, I, Kyle B. Lalich,
I, Kyle B. Lovich,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws
that I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and the operating policies
and the operating policies
and procedures
and procedures
of Wayne Township,
of Warren Township,
you're good, of Wayne Township,
of Wayne Township,
Warren County of Ohio,
Warren County of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of office
the duties of office
of the Assistant Fire Chief
of the Assistant Fire Chief
of the Township and County of Ohio,
of the Township and County of Ohio,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
upon which I'm about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know the chief has something for you too, and let you say a little bit as well. And then pin in the middle as well.
This is, yeah, that's you.
Just jam it in.
I know we did one.
Very good.
Thank you.
Oh, they were snug.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm thinking of speaking up here.
So we're very fortunate to have Kyle staying with us. He did an outstanding job as the interim fire chief. When I came on board, he was very instrumental in making a smooth transition, and I asked him what he thought how he saw his future here at the department. He goes, "I'd like to be the assistant chief, and I want to be in charge of EMS." I said, "Absolutely, write your job description." Yeah, just verbatim. So he really takes a lot off of me and educates me every day. So smart leaders surround themselves with people that are smarter than they are. And I have truly done that with Kyle. So we're very fortunate to have him, and I'm grateful for you staying on, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you very much.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So the time right now is 7:32, and we're turning back to regular session after Kyle's oath of office. So now we're turning to our public hearing, which is zoning map amendment for 3119 East State Route 73. And we will proceed with our hearing.
Okay, if you're ready, I have a slideshow for you, if I can get that started.
Yes, and so I'll read so we already said that the Wayne Township Board of Trustees shall not come to order. Stated the time earlier for public hearing for the scheduled 7/35/7/2024 rezoning application. So Stacy Lemon has a PowerPoint to share to explain the application and the reason for this hearing.
All
You may
right.
proceed.
All right, so the review process for map amendments, I'll go over, and this is the third and final step for public hearings. So the first was a Warren County Regional Planning Commission Executive Committee recommendation on April 25th, and they had a recommendation to approve. Then secondly was the Wayne Township Zoning Commission public hearing last Thursday, and they had a recommendation to approve, 3-0 to approve. And then tonight you'll be the decision-making body on this map amendment. 3119 East State Route 73, it's parcel ID 05133000001. This property is currently split zoned B2 and B1. The whole property is about 8.1 acres. The portion to be rezoned is about half of the total. If rezoned, the entire parcel would end up being B2. On the B2 portion of the lot today, there's a used car dealership that will continue. Rezoning the B1 portion doesn't create non-conforming uses or structures. The B1 portion is currently vacant. The future land use map shows mixed commercial industrial for this property. The reason for rezoning is the applicant wishes to build self-storage warehouses. It's complicated when it's two districts. Because in the B1 district, we allow them under a conditional use hearing, and on the B2 district, it's a site plan. So rezoning the entire property to B2 would simplify the process and allow for one approval procedure. Otherwise, we have buildings that are, splitting both zoning districts, basically. Also to the west, Clear Creek Township also identifies some of the properties as neighborhood business PUDs, light industrial, and neighborhood business sits on their future land use map. So overall, it's a consistent zoning district between Clear Creek and Wayne Township, and that area being commercial. Historically, this property, as far as I go back, it was to 1996. There was an application to rezone it to B3, which failed, but the property was already split zoned at that time. It's remained split zoned, and there's also been a veterinarian earlier than 96 on the property. So this compares our current zoning. You can see it's the furthest to the west there, B1 and B2, and we have B1 to the east. And And then you can see on the future land use map, the mixed commercial industrial zoning. And these are just some photos. So basically the whole field on the western portion. And then I have, so this is not how it can be completely laid out, but this was just kind of a sketch plan. I had the applicant go through this procedure just to make sure that he could fit the amount of buildings on this lot that he wanted in order to, you know, profitable wise, how much he needed to have on there. And also to make sure it would fit within our floor area ratios and impervious surface ratios and all those type of things. The building paralleling State Route 73 is too close, for instance, to the right of way. The building to the south is also too close, I believe, to the rear yard. But this is just, like I said, just an idea. If the rezoning is approved, he's gonna need to come back and submit for site plan approval. So you see, like on this, this plan, it doesn't show any of the access or the parking or the driving areas. It's just literally, can he fit what he wants on the lot? So those are the things that we need to work on, if this gets approved. And then that would come, excuse me, come back before you as a site plan approval. And so like I said, the existing buildings are shown on there as well. Let me see. And this is just the actual aerial showing. So part of the property, along this, is not buildable because there's a ravine there. So that area is not gonna be used when he does come in. And you can see, like, right here on the corner here, that's Patton's Lodge, and over here is the veterinarian. So it's not a big stretch really to go from B1 to B2. Sometimes there's concern about the intensity of uses, but a lot of the same uses are permitted in B1 and B2. It's not 100%, but sometimes these have a different approval process. And then lack of certain utilities makes this not a good site for more intense uses. Like this lack of sewer, for instance, holds back the extent to which this can be developed for some of the more intense uses that are in our zoning code. So that's what I have, unless you have any other questions for me on that.
Any other questions?
I have none.
I have none as well. So order of proceedings. Everyone has a right to speak either in support or opposition and ask questions. How to ensure a orderly hearing, we ask before speaking you state your name and address for the record. The time limits for each speaker will be set at 5 minutes. First, we'll hear from the applicants, then the proponents, then the opponents, and the applicant will be given opportunity to address any concerns raised after all have spoken. And so the board does not have any more questions. So is the applicant here? You may come up and speak if you have anything.
My name on there is Mark, like Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, we got this idea on doing this because of how many people call all the time to get boats and RVs stored. And the process I went through, Greg, who owns Clear Creek Storage, a friend of mine, we do his tow-outs for him, people who have paid him, and he's got outside storage. And I always joke, I said, that looks terrible. You drive by there. So I wanted to do inside, climate controlled, and I've got a lot of friends that own large storage unit facilities, and they said that's really the way to do it because people want their boats, RVs, and climate controlled. And with Caesars Creek and as many calls as we get for people thinking they could store, for some reason thinking they could store their boats or RVs at our place or our car lot, I know the demand is there from the public, and that's how this came about. Okay.
Yeah,
Any
thank you.
questions for me?
I have none.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
I just
Go ahead.
do have one comment. We did have a couple of people here at the zoning commission meeting. So one resident who lives across the street, is concerned about the traffic and the pulling in of the boats and so forth, and safety concerns with that, which are,
I would think we address that more at the site plan though, right?
Yeah.
Because,
right.
right,
I would say.
because even if we rezone it and you don't do it, it's like, whatever,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't,
And I did speak, share space, I did speak with ODOT, just to call them to see if they'd give me another driveway, but after talking, I really don't want another driveway. And they don't want another driveway closer to that intersection.
right.
And as we all know from that intersection, it's so dangerous to begin with, so many access there. But, where our driveway is, we would actually expand that driveway, and then there'd be a separate driveway between the sign and the road, because I've got so much setback there from where I start. So it'd be a separate driveway there, but we'd widen the entrance. And the concern that the lady had was, how much traffic, and one thing ODOT told me is whatever category I'm in for storage units is their least amount of activity category, whatever that is, for entrance and exit. Because people rent storage units to leave their stuff, so there's not a lot of activity.
Okay.
So on here, looking at this, he would widen here, and then there would be some kind of parallel driveway that gets over to these that meets the setbacks from the right-of-way line here. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? So do we have any proponents? Seeing none. Do we have any opponents? Seeing none as well. So we will now close the public hearing. Let's see here. I need one motion to approve or approve of modifications or deny rezoning application for 3119 East State Route 73. Do I have a motion to?
Make a motion to approve as it stands.
I would second that.
All righty, voice vote, Ms. Colvin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
And that will close the public hearing on 3119 East State Route 73.
Now on to the next, right? The harder part.
I love Wayne Township.
I think you actually do have a piece of legislation in support of that.
Yeah.
There is one down there,
Yeah.
basically that was to close the hearing.
Yeah.
And to approve it for certain ways, so I don't think the modifications. But yeah, we do have the resolution down here as well. Okay, so we can do the resolution right now, want to get a chance, you know, right into that?
Okay.
Yes.
So we have resolution 2024-52, this is one we just talked about, is a resolution adopting a zoning map amendment to rezone property located at 3119 East State Route 73 from neighborhood commercial zone B1 family to B2 community commercial zone. I'll go ahead.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-52.
Second.
All righty, roll call vote, Ms. Colvin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
and Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
All right, motion's passed this. Whatever day it is.
Seventh day.
It's the seventh day of May.
Good.
Not past midnight yet.
I'll just switch back to this.
Okay. Now you're done.
Oh, yeah, we're good now, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Now we're gonna pick up where we left off. We apologize about the long meeting, but there's a lot on our agenda tonight.
And it's all moving around in different places.
It is. So now what we'll do is we'll go to the fiscal officer report. Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Yep. Well, it's not so much as report as talk over a couple things. So,
Yeah.
we currently use Chase Credit Card, their corporate card program. And our policy doesn't really mirror our credit card policy doesn't necessarily mirror the state guidelines for credit card use. So, and there's, the two categories, you're supposed to either keep them with fiscal officer or have a compliance officer that's been appointed by the board, and they have to do some reports and meetings and so forth with the board to make sure that they're not being spent. So that kind of decreases the flexibility. So I investigated the purchase card or procurement card program, which is dealt with by the state much differently, because a credit card is more like an open line of credit. It's an open book. And so really anybody that has a credit card, even though they sign a piece of paper, could charge up a big bill before we'd ever realize it. With the procurement cards, you can set all kinds of things, how much they can spend per purchase and per day, per month, time of day, what they can purchase, those types of things. So that gives the flexibility. The reason I was going through this program is because it gives the flexibility back to us instead of using the other ways that the state wants us to maintain credit cards, because there are those internal controls. So I've reached out to Chase Credit Card, and they gave us the program. And so it would be on the front end, the user end would not notice any difference really much, other than me telling them what their levels are. But other than that, there will be a lot of internal back controls that we would utilize. That way we can we meet the state standards, and gives us the flexibility that we need or like to have using procurement cards or credit cards. So there's no additional fees. It's just merely it's transitioning from one card program to another. There is a reward, so we'll have to do a rewards report at the end of the year, but of course that can just go back towards a bill, a credit card bill. So, so that's the one topic I wanted to discuss. Do I have any, so I would like to get a motion so I can tell them to go ahead and transition us over.
Who would be doing all the control setup? Is that you?
That would be me,
Okay,
and working
all right.
with whomever, and so, so part of this too is, one, we're gonna have to update the credit card policy, to do this. But then two, one of my other projects, little side projects amongst everything else, is creating fiscal policy, cause we're kind of scant on that area, and, so we need to build some more structure. And so some of that, when you say those internal controls, some of that would be a part of that policy, and better identifying employees' level of purchase power. There's a notation in our current policy, but that's honestly with regard to the credit card. It's not what an employee can encumber upon on behalf of the township. I'm sorry, I slipped back to the village every once in a while. But what they can purchase. So a lot of that's going to have to be revamped or created, and I'm in the process of doing that as well. So it's really kind of multiple things up in the air at the same time, but knowing that this is going to be a process, that was one thing I wanted to move forward. But so the other thing I'm looking at, or I'm not really looking at, I'm needing really kind of your guys' approval, because it will cost just like $15 a month, but going to a positive pay system. So, which honestly, it aligns with the most recent technical bulletin came out with the auditor of state. And I had thought about this before, because I did this at the village and wanted to bring this here. It's to help cut down on, not really so much phishing, but more of misuse of our charges, or ACHs and checks. So anybody could, potentially change a check number or whatever. Well, with the positive pay system, it's a couple extra steps for me, but it's a huge layer of security for the township, even at $15 a month. So the UAN system I'll pull a report and then upload it to the bank, and then when my check is presented or an ACH is presented, it has to match exactly, or it won't process.
Okay.
Otherwise, it sends me an alert, and then I will have to validate whether to process it or not. And so some of that cyber stuff will be other things that we'll be adding in because of, this most recent technical bulletin was talking about that. And it's, and really, especially small government, but even larger ones, they're eating our lunch, really, in terms of taking money. I think it's the school system that lost $6 million because they thought they were moving money to an appropriate account, and it wasn't. They had been scammed. So those are the kinds of things that it's taken the state auditor's office notice now, and they're really focusing on this. And if you read the technical bulletin, they say that they're going to be looking for these kinds of things. So that would be one thing that we'd be putting in place to help match up with what the state would like to see. And there are some other little things that we can do to tighten that up. So it would be really two motions. One, to transition us into the procurement program with Chase. And then the second one would be to allow me to go ahead and transition us into the positive pay system with LCMB. Those are those two things. And so if we're just gonna continue to talk here. There are a few little things I did want to discuss. So Thursday, I'm meeting with a money management group. We've got a lot of money in the STAR, and we don't have a very big portfolio for what we have in terms of money. And I think I think we do justice to the citizens if we would broaden our portfolio a little bit. It's just gonna be some initial talks, and then he would probably come and talk to you guys. And then it's gonna be more training on me as well. If we would happen to go into different types of CDs and so forth, I'll have to take some additional training. But I am gonna have that discussion at least on Thursday and see where that goes, and maybe have him come in and talk to you guys as well. Because like I said, I think we would do better for the citizens if we can kind of broaden that portfolio down just a little bit, nothing crazy. And then I did send you guys that document about the document service, and just that obviously we're not going to talk about it tonight, but next meeting I would like to talk about it and look at maybe moving forward to begin to digitize our records and do it more virtually that way, reducing a lot of paperwork. I mean, you sit here and sign a lot of paperwork, you can see how much we can generate pretty quickly. And then, so like that system, you'd be able to sit at home and go through and authorize bills. We put it in your workflow, and you would just go through and check them off, and it anybody who touches like a particular document, it dates and times and timestamps it, and who touched it and looked at it, and you email it, it'll say that. But it will be a big help for all of us, really, because it would open up. So if Scott gets it, Scott or the fire department, if they wanted to add into it, they could. But it gives eyes on all the documents, because just this short time we've been here, I realized that a lot of documents are pigeonholed and they're here and there, and but this would open that up, with regard to all that. And of course, reduce our storage and paper use and a whole lot of other good stuff. So just review that if you could for our next meeting. I think I've just talked about all of the topics I wanted to talk about today.
Make a motion to,
Well, I was gonna ask a question about the P
Oh,
card.
yes.
The P card program you're talking about
Mhm.
with everybody that would have it. So does the state already have some restrictions in it to help guide, or some kind of policies right there? Or, because we were saying you have to do a lot of stuff on the back end of it.
Well, a lot of it, it's just putting those internals in place and trying to determine, and it'll be a discussion with you guys, So, a part of all of this, so I go back to some of this policy piece of it as well, right? So the state, by ORC, says that a township administrator is authorized up to $10,000 to encumber upon the half of the township, and then an employee has up to $5,000. Now, that's the state saying this is the max, and then you guys have to make that decision whether that is where you want it to be. So when we talk about the credit cards or the procurement cards, you guys would have to make that decision where you want that to be. Like, I had talked to Gus earlier, so, with the volume we do, and we're not an enormous organization, I think the $10,000 is great for a much larger township. You know, he's already at 3, I think probably 5 for him, and then, on the credit cards, those guys are on 150 and bring them up to 250, so it'd be half. But that's, you know, that's giving them the purchase authority for every purchase they make. So you wouldn't have that, you know, so the limit on the top of it, you know, we'd probably maybe make it a $10,000 limit or something like that
Yeah.
for Gus, and maybe, you know, 750 or, you know, 7,500 for, the employees that use them. But that's the work that we do. They don't have really any guidelines per se. There's actually less guidelines, by the technical bulletin, because it's a procurement card, because we can control so much.
Okay.
Whereas the credit cards they're very methodical, they kind of want to see this, and this in a policy, and how you guys do it. It's because it's an enormous, just open checkbook. So that's why, there are some differences there.
That's good.
Yeah.
Have we ever, in a state audit, have we ever had any issues with credit cards that,
I don't think you
have they,
probably
with our
have.
policies? I
Yeah.
mean, our lack of policies, you said, with the credit cards,
Right.
have they ever dinged us for anything? No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's not to say there's not a better mousetrap.
No, I know, I'm just,
Yeah,
curious.
and that's the thing is, you know, when you go to an audit though, it's always the luck of the draw. And that's
Yeah.
how we always have it in the back of your mind, because you know, you might do something in a particular fashion, but it may not be caught because they didn't pull the right receipt.
yeah,
They pull the right receipt, and, you know, a lot of things can start unraveling pretty quickly, potentially. In fact, they were talking about a specific, community. I was up at that, auditor state training back in March. And it was a small group discussion about it was a small townships, group discussion, and we were talking about audits and stuff like that, and the guy from the state says, hey, he says, you know, we get it, you know, it is a lot like a draw, because he says, there was a community that they had given, you know, some high audit standard award, but everybody locally knew that they had this like huge mistake, and it was just the fact that that wasn't the parameters of that particular audit. So in that particular audit, they looked stellar, but had the parameters been different, they would have been liable to a lot of hot water is what they were saying, but that's just how it works. So to that question, I mean, you know, I'm not aware of any time we've been in trouble, but, you know,
With the,
it doesn't make sense.
switch everything over to a purchase card, it will still be through the chains?
I couldn't hear
It'll
what-
still be through chains?
Yes, yes.
So will it still, are reoccurring charges that, come on those cards, will they still, or will we have to?
We'll probably have to transition those. And some of that too is purposeful, to help manage that flow of bills that are coming in as well, you know, because, you know, I'm gonna create like an admin card, but I mean, Gus will have a card, and Stacy will have a card, but there will be also an admin card, there'll be a fire card, road card, and so those reoccurring charges can go to that, and, you know, and not have
Be a little bit
ex-employees'
easier.
names popping up on
Yeah.
statements and those kinds of things, and it's just easier to track.
Pretty good, yeah.
I can tell you in my professional life, I mean, you know, the organization I work for probably has 1,000 employees. And coming into my role, the amount of things that some guy signed up for 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and the bill never makes it through to the person who's actually requesting the changes or making the purchase. And
Right.
it's probably some checks and balances, so to speak, or
Right.
doesn't hurt any of us. It keeps us all in a better place. So.
So it'll be more transparent, I believe, by being able to break some of that down a little bit. And clear when you're, especially when we're doing the reports end of it. So, and we already technically have a procurement, it's the fleet card for the VP, that's technically a procurement card. However, it's not set up that way right now, it's just open, wide open. I'm in the process of taking over the account, but when I do, then I'll start putting some of those constraints on there that, you know, certain cards can only be used for fuel and not sandwiches or this or that, which would be easy to miss, honestly, if
Oh,
someone,
you can't.
Yeah,
if someone went in and just bought a sandwich and gas, I would probably, there would be a possibility of missing that. Whereas this will make it so that you can only buy gas and that's it. So the ones that some of the ones that the fire department would use would have a stipulation on the amount of fuel that they could buy at one time, that kind of stuff, so they're not, and it's gonna start, and then I'll be able to, for the fuel cards, I'm gonna set it up so you have to start logging in your social security number in order to operate, because right now, you don't track that piece of it either, so. But those are some of the things that, I'm working on.
okay.
And I'm working with the fire department trying to get some,
So what do you need the first
Figures.
motion for?
Sorry.
Or you go back to the,
You go back to the motions you need,
You're right.
Scott.
so I
I'll
don't need a motion for
I'll
the
make a motion
procurement.
to have you go ahead and start the procurement card process and,
Okay, sure,
I will second that.
okay.
Aye.
All right, so,
Yay.
Yes.
yay.
okay, all right, Ms. Colvin, Mr. Jacobs, and Mr. Patrick, all yay. Okay, and it's just a motion's carried.
And I'll make a motion for you to do the deposit pay, the bank.
Yep.
Second that?
Patrick. Alrighty, Ms. Colvin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
Okay, this motion passes. And of course, I'll keep you updated as we do that. And a slew of resolutions.
No,
We're
now
on.
we're in old business.
Now we're in old business, yes.
Okay, I'm still, I'm on pause, I'll get
You're fine.
ASAP.
So that was A, so then B is
Okay.
the tree replacement.
Okay.
Diane is up.
I emailed this to some of you, I don't know if it's supposed to pull up or not. The tree replacement, no, sorry. I'll start, so, Scott and I met last week one day to look at where these current 5, I called them Bradford pairs or Cleveland pairs, and I now have, from Gus, the actual purchase order from way back when everything was put into place, and they called them aristocrat pair. So, I believe those are still in the bad category, so. But, so, the proposal is, the objective is to remove those 5 pear trees from the administrative building due to them being an invasive species that contribute to the seed spreading and overpopulation of wood areas where the trees are not wanted, and replace them with a native tree. So our current, tree placement here is the blue, like these two are in, I don't wanna call it an island, but they're out here. And then to replace them, we have to move, the 2 green dots are, a black gum wildfire. They have to be moved out further. The one that's gonna be on the building side here, it's gonna be a little tricky just to get them. These are about 1.5 inch, 2 inch, caliber trees. And so getting that one in the right spots with the way the sign is placed and everything will be tricky, and, but we should be able to do it, we think. Then the red dot is not exactly sure yet. We want a smaller, not a huge tree there, so I'm thinking either eastern redbud or a serviceberry, possibly a magnolia. But something it'd be between where the current 2 trees are, because those 2 trees kind of take up the ends of that, so we have to put something in the middle. And then the yellow dot is a tulip tree, and that would be just moved back further from where the current tree is, more towards the wooded area back there. And I did some approximate pricing here, and this was from Grandma's Gardens, is where I got this pricing from. Black gums are about $2.50 each, the tulip tree is $2.29. Eastern redbud serviceberry, $2.79 and $2.19. And then I assume we need some kind of compost, because Stacy said it's all, the dirt here stinks. So we probably need something to, help them grow.
No, there's no topsoil.
Yeah, there's no topsoil, so yeah, we need something in there, or these poor trees won't do anything. And then we need to either rent or hire some stump grinding of the old ones also. So we're looking at, probably, I'm gonna guess maybe $1,500 total. I don't know how much stump grinding costs, but the timeline would be, we remove the old trees, and it'd have to be before the end of June per the OSU Extension Office, because that's when they start setting their fruit, where we don't want them to, so we'd have a few months probably where we would have no trees out here, because then we wouldn't wanna put the new trees in until the fall, because we don't wanna put them in the dead heat of summer and let them suffer. Then I just have some pictures down on the second page of what they look like, in case anybody has any love or hate relationship with any of these trees.
Just the Bradford pear.
Yeah, not the, yeah, service berry, they don't get very big, they kind of look like the Bradford pear, they bloom about the same time, but they're a native, that might be hard to get the, yeah.
The aristocrat pear and the Cleveland pear is a hybrid of
Okay.
the Bradford pear.
Okay,
And they were designed to not to be fruit bearing
but they are.
and to split. And yeah, from what
Yeah.
I've read, it's almost impossible to keep them from not having some sort of fruit.
Okay,
But
yeah, I've seen little babies out here in the flower beds, so
well,
they're doing somebody's doing something.
after 20 years, I, my comment on it is that when I went this spring through all the woods around us, I do not see, what's the calendar or whatever you call the
Calorie.
calorie growth that I see around my woods at home and all invasive that I see around my area of the township. So, you know, obviously the birds can take the fruit or whatever, the seeds, and they can, you know, however far they go, and they end up dropping them or whatever they, you know. So, just don't see it here, but, you know, the trees are, want to replace them, that's your choice.
There's my research.
I think the honeysuckles killed most of the stuff that came from around us, and honeysuckle does a pretty good job of covering the ground. Holy moly. You can't keep up with honeysuckle.
No.
And price-wise, I mean, that's not a bad price. We showed on, I pulled up and found,
Yeah, the old one.
we spent $300 a tree for the 5 of those aristocrat pears, 20 years ago. They were $300
Yeah.
trees, but they were 2.5 inches in diameter when we planted those. And, well, I remember watering them an awful lot. They seemed awful small for 2.5 inches. But, yeah, it'll be a new look.
Well, it's up to you guys if you wanna do it or not, so.
I would, yes. I say yes, and I will, make a donation of $250 to help support. So at least on my end, I'll do that.
I'll do that too.
I have one comment too, is if we're gonna plant new trees and they need watered, our hose bibs, really need to be repaired. You can't turn them on past a trickle.
You talking about the spigots out?
Yes.
Spigots?
Mm-hmm.
So can you get, is there access, is there signs to be able to get in there and be able to change them out? I changed mine out just the
Oh,
other
no,
day,
it's
just
like,
last year.
I've seen somebody, one person, they'll use like a wrench and they'll crank it way up, but otherwise, like, to water anything, it'd probably take you, it takes a really long time to fill up a watering can.
Really? Oh.
So there's a hose bib out here, and then there's one at the front of the building too. So I don't know if you have a way.
I'll look.
Gator bags.
I'll check that. I'll check.
Oh, gator bags.
Gator bags, you fill
That's
gator
right.
bags and they slowly release
Good
the water
idea.
into the trees and you fill them up as needed.
I'll check
I
that.
was just saying,
Okay.
there's just
And we got gator bags from the firehouse. We planted the
Okay.
stuff there. So hopefully they're still down at 165.
Okay.
They only got used, I think, for 2 years, I think, or maybe on one summer.
I'll root around down there and see if I can find it.
All right, do we wanna make a motion so we can get the removal started or not, or?
Yes, so moved.
I project.
There you go.
All right, so we'll do a voice vote, Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries.
That timeline end of June, is that?
I'm sorry?
Timeline to remove them end of June, okay, or,
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, yeah, I will, I'll get to the Memorial Day
Yeah.
holiday and all that jazz, and then we can, I'll
Okay.
work it in the schedule.
I'm prepared.
I see you are.
Hey,
She brings cash.
I don't bring any cash, I got my checkbook. Of course, checks aren't always best now either, just like what Scott said, so. Okay, now we're moving on to the next part, I think we're good there. Do we have any questions or concerns with the bills?
None?
All right, let's go into legislation then. We have resolution 2024-43. This is accepting the resignation of Erica Throbe from the Wayne Township Fire Department.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-43.
I'll second.
All righty, roll call vote, Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
All right. Resolution is adopted, seventh day of May.
We got our next resolution, 2024-44. This is a resolution to approve the purchase of a pickup truck for the fire department to use as a battalion vehicle.
I think we discussed it last.
We discussed it
Pretty
last
good,
meeting,
yeah.
yes.
Approved, and this just has all the information
All right.
written for it.
Very good.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-44.
I will second.
Voice vote, Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
This motion is carried, seventh day of May.
Now we have resolution 2024-45. This is a resolution to approve the purchase and installation of upfitting equipment on the new pickup truck for the fire department to use as a battalion vehicle.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-45.
I'll second.
Voice vote, Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
This is passed the seventh day of May.
Next, we have resolution 2024-46. This is approve the acceptance and hiring of Andrew Branson to the Wayne Township Fire Department as a part-time P.O.C. EMT. Is there any questions, or do you have any more input?
This was hands down one of the best interviews I've ever been on. He is a medical student at Wright State, and, he's worked up north in Seneca County. He and I know from my teaching up there, know some of the same people. He's highly recommended, pretty motivated. But it was hands down, just a very impressive interview.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-46.
I will second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yay.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
All right. This motion's passed the seventh day of May.
Next, we have resolution 2024-47. This is approve the acceptance and hiring of Faith Ferneding to the Wayne Township Fire Department as part-time P.O.C. firefighter EMT. Any comments, chief?
Faith is one of my former students. She is very excited to get started. Wants to do just a few PRN shifts a week, one or two, and then she's open to coming in and volunteering on some of the weekends, so.
Good.
Great.
I will make a motion to approve resolution 2024-47.
I will second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
This motion's carried the seventh day of May.
Next, we have resolution 2024-48. This is approve the acceptance and hiring of Allison Brown to the Wayne Township Fire Department as part-time P.O.C. firefighter EMT.
Yeah, so Allison found out about us through Derek Brown. It's one of his friends' girlfriends. She came in, another outstanding interview. She came in, she had a resume. She's in medic school. So, she will finish up and be a medic, December is when her class ends. So,
I'll I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-48.
Second.
Alrighty, roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
This motion is, or resolution is carried 7-0. Sarah.
That's air
Conditioning,
conditioning.
okay.
Relax.
Dehumidifier here.
Next, we have resolution 2024-49. This is approved the acceptance and hiring of Hannah Wolfenbarger to the Wayne Township Fire Department as a paid on-call firefighter EMT position. Chief?
Yeah, so Hannah wants to do, volunteer right now, she's in EMT school and plans to go to, level 1 fire class, at the end of the year. The next level 1 class starts at, I believe it's either August or September at Warren County.
Okay, go ahead.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-49.
I'll second.
Alrighty, roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman.
Yes.
This motion is carried 7-0.
Next, we have resolution 2024-50. This is approved the acceptance and hiring of ELAINA Benton to the Wayne Township Fire Department as paid on-call EMT.
Yeah, so ELAINA reached out and I had her apply. She too is finishing her EMT class and she should be finishing up this month at Sinclair. Very interesting young lady. She plays in the Dayton Youth Philharmonic. She plays the violin. And she's very eager. She wants to do this as a career. So thought we'd give her a chance. And
But she lives locally, right?
yeah. She lives, in town. She lives more than 5 minutes away,
Okay.
but she lives in town. Yeah, she's in the township.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-50.
I will second that.
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
This motion is carried 7-0.
All right, next is resolution 2024-51. This is approving termination of certain members from the Wayne Township Fire Department that no longer meet our activity or performance standards. So you get a little bit more on this, Chief?
Yeah, so one of the first things I did is talking with Kyle and Assistant Chief Lalich and Lieutenant Patterson is, hey, who do we still have on the roster that isn't showing up? So I went back, he brought up these names, I went back and looked at their activity through ESO for the past year, and none of them were active for the past year. They haven't made any runs, they haven't showed up to any trainings, they haven't done anything with the department. So some of them still had equipment and fire gear that we could use for other members and coming on. So I sent them a certified letter on March 18th. I heard back from Erica THOBE, who she said she was going to come in and meet with me. So I called her. I said, "Hey, are you still interested? Because I need to move forward. I've only got." So she turned in her resignation. I also this morning got a resignation letter from Jake Hanselman.
Okay.
So he will not be getting. He has resigned as well.
Okay.
So I sent out the registered letters. Heard nothing back from any of them. So we're gonna go move on and get some people that are interested in being with us.
So registered letter, you got the information back that it did get delivered?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, that's good.
they're certified.
Certified letters, yeah.
Yeah.
So the current resolution has been amended with Mr. Hanselman off and this back. So what you're going to sign, or make a motion on, does not include Mr. Hanselman.
Because that's gonna be a separate resolution. Okay. Yep, sounds good. I will make a motion to approve resolution 2024-51.
I will second.
Go for it.
Alrighty, roll call vote, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Colvin?
Yes.
All right, this motion is carried, the seventh day of May.
Okay, so we've already passed resolution 2024-52, so we're gonna move on to resolution 2024-53. And this is a resolution to reallocate appropriation within the Fire Fund B in Wayne Township, Warren County.
Yeah, so the fire department has a grant for $10,000. And, so it's received, obviously, it's in the revenue, but when you look at the award letter, we need this to be trackable, so I created a separate account. And then, so now we're gonna have to put appropriations to that account to spend that $10,000. So I'm pulling that from the transfers out account, pulling $10,000. It's not really moving money, it's really moving appropriations. So we're able to put that on that account. And since the fire department does get a lot of grants, we really should have a separate, revenue account just for grants, so that when we get audited or they ask, we're able to quickly identify
Oh, yeah.
that that's what the money is versus having it all piled into one big lump, and then it really begins to become a headache to sort out. So that's all that is doing, it's just, I've created the account, I'm moving appropriations so that they can spend their, well, I think they want to spend 10,500 or something, but that's to move this specific amount of money, which is granted to us.
Is each grant gonna have its own, category or not? Or are you just gonna have one?
Unless it's, I mean, if it's not like really big, I mean, if it was like a very large one that you could even create a fund, really for it. And so go back to the procurement cards. If we have like that big grant we got from the CARES Act or whatever, we can create a credit card, because it doesn't matter, they'll make whatever we want, and it's no charge. We would like create in the future a card for that account, so that we know anything that's charged to that card is coming right from that CARES Act, and it makes it so much easier to track, doing it that way, so those kinds of things. But with regard to them, I think just having the account that I set up for it, would be helpful, like if you can make it an EMS one, just to kind of help separate that out even further. But I think it's smart to do that. It makes, again, for auditing purposes and tracking and future budgeting a lot easier. So that's all that does do, is just moving some of that appropriation so we can spend that $10,000 that they've already received from the state fire marshal's office for radios.
Yeah, and that's a communications grant. Initially, what they had put in prior to me being here is for they're called unication pagers. And they're basically like the pagers the firefighters wear, but they have a lot more features. You can listen to different radio channels and stuff. But we were having issues with them. So whenever Turtle Creek Township's EMS tone would go off, it would set off our unication pager. So we worked through trying to fix that, and it wasn't happening. There's some programming issues on their end, nothing we did. So I asked Tanner, I'm like, it's for communications, right? What else can we get? So he asked. And so we're gonna get a bank charger, another bank charger for the radios, and some more updated lapel mics and stuff with that money to improve our communications that way.
All right.
But that'll be a whole different thing. This is just moving appropriations so we can do that.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-53.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, Ms. Colvin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
Switched
Boy, you sneaky guy.
It's past the seventh day of May.
Now we have resolution 2024-54, a resolution to reallocate appropriations within the road department of Wayne Township, Warren County.
Well, somebody bought some Snap-on tools, and there was no money in the account, really basically left. So before the credit card gets here,
Thanks, Snap-on guy.
hope you got a great calendar out of it. So we're just moving some money to cover when that bill comes due for that particular account.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-54.
Second.
Alrighty, roll call vote, Mr. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Colvin?
Yes.
Okay, this motion's carried. Now, I did wanna, so I was talking to Gus a little bit today. how, you know, the way I guess, I'll just put it this way, how I've been trained and taught and worked with the Auditor of State's office, the way we do our budgets, we do it by, when we pass that final resolution, for permanent resolution, we pass it in a line item fashion. Well, the problem with that though is that our legal level of control, and that's what they always say, your legal level of control then is at the line item. So you guys have said we can spend $100 on postage, let's say, well, that's all we can spend. Otherwise, to undo that now is we have to pass another resolution to do that. So we'll probably see a lot more resolutions until the next budget cycle, and then once that happens, the way we will pass the ordinance or the resolution will be, it'll say like, you know, road department will be personnel, and other expenditures, I think. So that allows the fiscal officer then to move that money within those parameters, without a resolution every single time. But since the resolution has been passed on those line items, it's fixed to those line items now. And to move, you know, even if they're within the next account code, normally you could move, but since it's been passed in the line item, you know, if it's just moving, you know, $5 from the stamp fund to the office fund, you can't do it because you guys have set that resolution or set those amounts. So you're gonna get hammered, you know, probably with some resolutions, until it corrects itself. But I'm just letting you know, that's why you're probably seeing more resolutions with regard to moving money than you had maybe in the past.
So moving forward, Scott, as we look into our next budget year, or
Which we're
whatever,
gonna begin with, yep.
so if I'm hearing you correctly, we're gonna be adding a lot more different line items, more specific.
Well, so there is a desire, I'm hearing on both ends, you know, one but internally, but then some departments are wanting to see more trackable funds. And so some places within the UAN, we will be able to drill down a little bit more, and other ones we're just gonna carry over to a spreadsheet. So I'm in the process of creating cost centers, and so that can help us begin to track things. Now, some of it we can track within UAM, as in a good example is, there's a fire operations, operating supplies, I believe is how it's titled. Well, there's the program code's 330, but then 220 is EMS. So we could split that, so you can see what's going to EMS, what's going to fire. Right now, you just see everything going to fire, and there's no way to really track if they buy 50 boxes of Band-Aids. You know, so then I'd be able to split that, and I'll be doing that. So you can see EMS supplies versus, you know, fire supplies. And I told Gus today, in fact, that I understand the fire side of it, and have a better handle on the operations of you. I'm gonna have to sit down a bit more to try to understand what makes sense to break down. Because, you know,
I mean, I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to get myself prepared.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
And thinking in that direction, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, you know, so that way, you know, the operational, you know, because my goal is, honestly, you know, because we pay everything out of big blanket, you know, certificates out of big buckets. So it becomes very hard to track things and really forecast things when we're constantly doing that. You know, so I use this as an example. It's not a knock on the fire department, but one of the things I saw that come across the table was, you know, there 2 or 3 laptops were purchased through Amazon on a credit card that went into a big blanket certificate. Well, tracking that is almost impossible unless you really, really drill down on it and start pulling receipts. Whereas, so my goal is to start moving things, and that will be part of the fiscal policy. Anything over $1,000 will then generate a PO or a blanket PO, so it stands alone, and we can track it a lot better. If you're buying 100 washers, I can care less.
Sure.
And we'll put that on a blanket PO, you know, operating or whatever. That way, things are just able to be teased out a little easier than what they are now, because right now, you know, the fire department's asking for numbers, and I'm like, well, you know, it's gonna be a lot of pulling
No, I
documents
get it,
to
I
figure
get it.
that
No,
out.
and that's.
So I don't know that we're adding a whole lot, you know, you know, some of it will be cost center wise, like I said, some of it will be tracked in UA and some of it will be on because from what I understand, they don't want you to overload UA and cost center. You know, UA system's a great system for smaller organizations, but you know, you start getting into large organizations, they move away rather quickly from UAN because they're just more robust. And
Sure,
This,
sure.
this does a good job and it does a great job for us. But some of the things, like you can't load it with a bunch of, I guess, cost centers, because I guess it bogs it down. So we'll have to track some of that, on the side, but it depends on, again, the nature of your operation.
Right.
You know, fire, they're wanting to track a lot more, so some of that will be a little bit more intense, whereas you guys, I really don't, again, I don't understand that operation, but, you know, we can build it, however, but it would be nice to be able to track, a bit better than what we do, at least for, each department, you know, just to help really guide us in our, like you said, in our, because we're getting into the forecasting phase right now.
Right.
So that'll be due in July, so, you know, the next couple of weeks, we need to start thinking about those big purchases that we wanna make,
Right.
for the coming year. And so we can start compiling, you know, the revenues against, what we anticipate as expenditures, those kinds of things, so we can get the tax budget put together and submit it to the county. So that's kind of where I'm going with all that. But that, again, is gonna be a part of a policy that eventually I'll get kicked out, hopefully. I would like to see a lot of this changed by the beginning of, third quarter. So that gives me a few months yet, to get through and then start working towards, the future.
Right. No, perfectly understandable.
That's a good question, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, we're ready for next one?
Oh,
We got resolution 2024-55. This is to accept the resignation of Jake Hanselman from the Wayne Township Fire Department.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024 to
Second.
55.
That was Patrick or Jackie? Okay, that happened so fast that. Okay, Ms. Collin,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
All right, this motion
Have a copy down there for you?
I have a copy.
Where's the-
Perfect.
where's the
Either that or was something in my
It was
coffee.
Andy.
Yes, I second it, thank you. Next, we have anything else for the, new business? Anything else? We're good there? All right, let's go to correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence tonight?
I, actually, under the new business.
Yes, go ahead.
The information I gave you about a board member,
Yes,
Uh-huh.
would you like me to proceed with
Yes.
that?
I
I say
would.
yes.
Okay. It does appear on here that, you're able to suspend someone for 60 days, during which time we proceed with the other. So do you want me to think about that for the next hearing? If you want to do like a suspension while we pursue the public hearing?
Well, when's the next time that they're due up for, reappointment?
Members serve until someone fills their spot, unless they resign or if they're removed.
I'm the alternate, right?
Her
Because-
term is passed, but
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, I
it
see.
doesn't matter because
Okay,
there's still part of it, the way that I read it in the revised code as well as in our zoning, and you serve until you're replaced.
can we just go ahead and start
I'd
do
say
the hearing? Go for the hearing. Well, I mean, we should probably pursue a replacement also, but I don't know, why do the temporary thing when we can just go ahead and do the hearing?
But I just have to serve notice and
Okay.
schedule a public hearing, and in the interim, that's an option. But we don't have anything
We
coming
just
up
need to have
in the
somebody
near
else apply.
future.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing too, so. But at least get
I'll
that out
just-
there.
I'll just start the procedure.
Just
Okay.
start it, yes, please.
Then we'll go look for another person.
Right.
Well, we need a
As
full-
general consensus of the board members that were present Thursday night, we're all going to actively
Okay, great,
seek.
thank you.
Because there's not a full board either, we really only have 4 people.
Right, we're one shy of a full board, and then
no.
Too old, then no older.
Because nobody replaced.
It's not the first time it's been said about you.
Yeah, I know. As the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh.
Yeah, because I thought Dave replaced me.
Dave did replace you.
Yeah, he
Oh, that's
replaced
right,
me.
Dave.
But Alan Carter.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That's right.
No, I say we need to proceed with it, yes. I'm good with
With the, okay,
Yeah.
I'll start working
We'll
with
do
you.
both.
it. Yes. So we're good with correspondence?
Hearing none.
Good, okay, now we got elected officials' comments. Any of you guys?
I just wanna say that Scott, I appreciate having Scott here. A lot of good changes and good ideas and fresh ideas to come in, to help with the board, and so appreciate you, glad you're here,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I want to echo the same comments, the same thing I was going to say.
Gotcha.
Before you took my thunder, that's perfect. But anyway, Scott, thank you again. All that stuff is good stuff. That's what the, residents would like to see, especially with knowing about the financials, having it out there, having some type of control as well with it. Excellent. Keep that up.
I was just gonna say, I know it's only been a little over 2 months since, Chief Beckett came in, and I think he's done an awesome job getting new people coming in and
Yeah.
things
Big
working,
changes.
so, kudos. And then the old people, you guys are great too, so.
Did she really say old people? She said old people.
My brother had his 70th birthday today, May 7th. He turned
Yeah.
70, I forgot to put it in. I called him, wished him happy birthday. Now that's old.
Now that's old. Oh.
And he still works for NASA, so.
And she what?
He still works for NASA.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. I also heard that Tony ran a 450 mile this weekend. Congratulations to him.
Yes,
That's what I heard. That's pretty good.
we think he qualified for state this week.
Did he? Well, congratulations on him. That's
That's
good.
what it is.
So we have no work session, no executive session, and I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.